Well, one way to take a look at these type deposits, we're a little bit early. We're still in the resource definition stage, and we don't really know how much of the deposit we've identified yet. We anticipate it'll be substantially larger than it is. So it's a bit early to be putting NAV or say preliminary economic evaluation around the project. But one thing we can do is we can compare the deposit to previous sales of similar type deposits on this. And what we've seen over the last couple decades is that projects that are at the PEA or pre-feasibility stage, they're demonstrated to be large and economically viable copper deposits, typically are acquired by major mining companies for about 4 cents US per pound of copper or copper equivalent in the ground. If we take a look at Regulus currently with our new resource, we're valued at less than 1.50 cents per pound in the ground of copper.
You've been very clear that you are explorers. You're there to not get into the build phase or start producing. Your model is to sell out to a mid cap or large producer. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. But having said that, what we do in order to define, acquire, and define and show the size of a project that might be of interest to a major mining company, it's very important that we have our eye towards economics and that we do absolutely everything just like we will build the mine. Even though we clearly state that we prefer to be on that steep value add part of the curve between discovery and pre-feasibility, and that our skill set is not the skill set required to take that to become a mine in the future. We do everything exactly like we'll build it ourselves. That's the best way to demonstrate the economic viability of a project and attract a buyer.
And also ensure there's no discount applied by the buyer.
Absolutely. It's interesting. What we've learned over the years is that when you're on a project like this, a lot of us think it's kind of simply drill it out and move it up through the stages of evaluation of PEA to a pre-feas to a feasibility. But what we like to do is we like to identify the potential weaknesses in the project and really emphasize on those and demonstrate what can be done about those, how to move forward. So in a project like Antiquary, we don't worry about grade. We have plenty of grade, but we're focusing more on characterizing the styles of mineralization. It's a fairly complex deposit, and working on identifying potential deleterious elements and showing how we can tackle those as we move forward.
So you must be quite confident about where the copper market is going in terms of the future of copper as part of the battery minerals. I mean, because you don't necessarily have the skills today in-house to build this out or get into production. But again, you're being very frank about that. But if the market didn't go the way you wanted, would you make those changes?
You play your hand out as it goes forward. If we show that the size of this project is an economically viable project, but the market's not in the right moment for potential acquirers to be looking for these type projects, we have a choice of hunkering down and waiting till the market approves, or moving it forward ourselves by retooling the company. What we attempt to do is to identify those projects that, almost independent of metal price, will be of interest to major companies. However, the major companies tend to buy these type projects when the market's hot. They buy at the top of the market is generally the case. That's when they're cashed up, and that's when they're encouraged to look for new projects.
Right, okay. And you alluded there to the fact that you made people aware, or you tried to understand and then make people aware of what the problems were and how to overcome those. You're, again, quite frank in your PowerPoint. You talk about 3 issues that you've had to deal with. One being the land ownership position, but I think you resolved that with the JV with Southern Legacy of Peru. Is that right?
Yeah, really, there were 3 potential challenges on this project when we first started looking at it. The group that had it was called Southern Legacy Peru, and they were working on those challenges. The first was a rather complex land situation, and Southern Legacy had done an excellent job to consolidate the district and clean up the title issues. And so that issue is largely out of the way, and particularly with our joint ventures with the neighbors on this. The second issue was historic rejection from some of the communities for previous exploration activity. And when we took a close look at the situations that had happened there, we realized that the previous operators on the project had been working in a way that wasn't very transparent and wasn't with full social license. It's important to point out the 2 communities that we're now working well with have allowed the construction of 2 mines since those incidents happened. So they're not anti-mining whatsoever at all. They're just demand to be treated fairly, and that's our motto and how we like to work as we move forward. So we're finding it quite easy to work with the communities in the area.
Right. And then you do talk about this is a slightly technical one, but I think it's worth getting into here because there's some sort of confusion out there as to how you're going to tackle it, and that's with regards to the arsenic content in the ore body. I think there's a number of you saying 54% of the ore body is within tolerance and the rest not so much. So how do you tackle something like that?
The first thing that it's important to understand that the Antiquary deposit actually consists of 2 distinct alteration and mineralization styles. There's an earlier skarn and porphyry-related mineralization that is relatively low arsenic and metallurgically similar to many operating mines and capable of producing a nice clean concentrate.
Yep.
And then somewhat later and partially overlying the deposit is a high sulfidation epithermal system that has copper gold sulfides as well, but those copper gold sulfides are associated with higher levels of arsenic. So approximately 40% of the project right now has high arsenic, and approximately 60% of the project has moderate to low arsenic. What happens is that if we have high levels of arsenic in our ore, and that arsenic is associated with a mineral that also has the copper, when we make a copper concentrate, we capture the arsenic. And arsenic levels make it more difficult to market your concentrate. The concentrate buyers have tolerances. Sometimes they charge penalties up to a certain level, or if you get at very high levels, they can even, it can be a concentrate that's not attractive for people to buy. And so it requires extra treatment, either at the smelter where you sell it to, or there are a variety of emerging technologies that we can apply to treat the material before we sell it to a smelter as well.
Right, that's interesting. When you say emerging technology, these are well-grounded, well-used, or are they emerging?
They're actually, it's a mix on this. We have conventional roasting, which has been around for a long time and is one way to treat concentrates that have deleterious elements like arsenic. It has been modernized in many ways. There's currently a large roaster in process at the General Jales mine that's owned by Codelco in central Chile to process these higher arsenic concentrates. But there are also what's a little bit more emerging is the pressure oxidation techniques. And many companies are trying to tackle this. Worldwide, arsenic contents are increasing in copper cons, and people are looking at technology that can be applied by pressure oxidation. It's essentially an autoclave that allows you to oxidize your material and sequester the arsenic into a stable, safe form. And it actually has some benefits that you improve your copper and your gold recoveries at the same time.
And I think some people were asking the question is, could you blend it?
Blending is also a common technique that's used right now, either blending between materials that you have on your own site or selling your concentrate to a group that has a lot of clean concentrate that can blend. So they're specialist third parties that blend concentrates for you prior to sending them to smelters. But quite frankly, on the project we have right now, we'd like to develop methods that higher arsenic material is economically viable. So we anticipate that we'll be doing quite a bit of metallurgical testing in this next year and exploring the different avenues. The pressure oxidation technique that I mentioned is highly promising. The challenge really is overcoming the capital costs and the operating costs. But that's where the higher grades that we have at Antiquary come to play, and we anticipate we'll be able to support those higher costs associated with the higher grades.
So I guess your preferred solution is go and discover additional ores which are clean and focus on those initially in terms of your optimization of the project.
That's really our strategy right now is we naturally want to find all of the mineralization that's on our properties or properties that we have access to. We anticipate as we move to the north, we'll be finding additional mineralization, and that mineralization will be cleaner. So depending on what we find, the entire center of gravity of the opportunity might move towards that cleaner mineralization and put the arsenic bearing material that's a little bit more metallurgically challenging farther down the road.